Jesse, is there anything substantive in Cuomo's explanation that will assuage the anger from furious families or the suspicion from skeptical lawmakers?
I think a little bit of both. It probably will not be enough to dissuade lawmakers, first of all. The gap that they're talking about was about 6 months between when the Cuomo administration replied to federal investigators and when they finally gave the information to state lawmakers. And already here in Albany, we're hearing from lawmakers that are upset that they're trying to blame that lag on the legislature or on lawmakers. And then for the families, I think this goes to the larger issue that you touched on in your report, that we're talking about a doubling of the number of deaths that have been reported of nursing home residents. Now, keep in mind, the whole death toll has not changed, but in terms of the tally, in terms of the human toll, the horrible human toll in nursing homes, that has gotten much, much worse here in New York over the last couple of weeks.
I think if you look at nationally why this matters, in part it's because Governor Cuomo in New York had the state that was the hardest hit at the beginning, and he took to that soapbox every day. He was in front of the cameras every day and challenging other governors and the federal government to act in the way that he thought was best. And so this shows a chink in the armor, I would think.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, the governor got great reviews early on in the pandemic for being just the facts kind of guy, right? He would say, we're just following the data, we're just following the facts, we're not going to spin this, there's going to be no politics, et cetera. And the look of withholding data from state lawmakers and then kind of using a post facto excuse of, oh, well, we were worried about the federal government, just doesn't comport with that image of a guy who got a long way on saying, I'm just following the facts. And so he's been doing cleanup on that for the last couple of days and the last couple of weeks, in fact.
His political opponents, joined by a few members of the governor's own party, are demanding that he be stripped of his emergency powers, which were granted because of the pandemic. How would that, in reality, affect the effort to get people vaccinated, to keep up the testing effort, and to get a handle on coronavirus?
The governor would argue that it would be a detriment to that you need a kind of strong central government, a state government to kind of oversee these things, that you can't do these things on a local level. But there does seem to be growing momentum here in Albany for some sort of censure, some sort of message to the governor to say, look, this performance vis-a-vis the nursing homes, vis-a-vis data, vis-a-vis us asking questions as elected representatives, and you basically telling us to buzz off, that's not acceptable. And taking away his emergency powers would seem to be an easy way, or at least an easier way of doing that. So we'll see if that actually gains enough momentum to get through the legislature.
Cuomo has done national television during this time. He wrote a memoir about how he handled coronavirus and his leadership lessons. Do you think that this is enough to derail what looked like a promising continuation of his political career?
I think it's certainly a blemish. Once again, to go back to this idea of a political brand, the political brand that Andrew Cuomo has built over years is a pragmatic progressive, a guy who gets things done. And then he built on that with the coronavirus pandemic in saying, I'm just going to give you the facts. The Trump administration is going to lie to you, but I'm going to tell you the truth. In this instance, in which the State Department of Health and the Cuomo administration basically withheld this data, gives the lie to that narrative. So I think he will be up for re-election here in New York next year. I think considering New York's a very comfortable Democratic state, he will probably win re-election, but he might face a strong Democratic primary. And then looking further down the road, 2024, there had been some chatter about a presidential consideration, maybe a campaign there. I think this is something that people are not going to forget and could be used against him in the future.
Jesse, thank you for sharing your detailed reporting with us. Appreciate that.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.